I have a backup boyfriend, she said, laughing with her friends. Great idea, I replied. Without hesitation, I walked up to the backup, placed the ring in his hand, and said, "Your turn. She is all yours." The silence that followed was absolute. Before we go on, hit subscribe and drop a comment telling us which city you're tuning in from. I'm 32 years old and, or rather, had a relationship with Camila, 29. We were together for 4 years and lived in my apartment. For the last 18 months, my name was the only one on the lease. We got engaged 6 months ago. The ring was always a kind of joke between us. We were at a craft fair out of town when we saw a simple hammered silver ring with a single clear cubic zirconia. It was very well made, but it was silver, not gold, and the stone wasn't a diamond. It cost exactly $100. Camila fell in love with it. She said it was very us and that she didn't need a blood diamond. She insisted we buy it as an engagement ring with the promise of getting something real on our 5th anniversary. I thought it was great. I thought it was a sign she was practical and not materialistic at all. Spoiler, I was a complete fool. Last night, we had the official engagement party. Something small, just close friends, about 15 people squeezed in my apartment. From the start, something felt weird. Camila was radiant, but every time I got close, she found an excuse to walk away. She was either whispering and laughing with her friends Daniela and Valeria, or stuck to Sergio, her best friend from college, with whom she'd been spending too much time lately for emotional support. I'd brought it up before, and she'd always reply with the classic, "You're paranoid." I never do something like that. Sergio is like my brother. We open gifts, we get a blender, towels, some practical things. Then Daniela, who already had 3 or 4 glasses of Prosecco in her, stood up to make a toast. To Camila and Luis, she slurred while raising her glass. Everyone clapped. Seriously, Camila is the smartest woman I know. She has a great job, a great man. She winked at me. And she's so smart she even has a backup plan, right, Sergio? The mood changed suddenly. It wasn't total silence. It was that awkward moment when everyone inhales. She was red, but she wasn't looking at me. She was looking at Sergio and smiling. Not a nervous smile, but a pleased, almost proud smile. Sergio, fool of the year, smiled back and raised his glass to her. Daniela, completely oblivious to the bomb she'd just dropped, went on. I always tell her that if Luis messes up, Sergio is ready on the bench to jump in. It's our joke. At that moment, everything clicked. It was like a movie scene where the sound disappears, and there's only a high-pitched beep. All the suspicious details from the last 6 months paraded through my mind. The nights she said she was going out with the girls, but her shared location showed her in Sergio's neighborhood. The constant texts she'd turn away so I wouldn't see them, the sibling lunches that lasted 3 hours, the fact she stopped talking about the wedding venue. Everyone was looking at me waiting for my reaction, so I gave it to them. I laughed. A loud, convincing laugh. "Daniela, that's brilliant," I said, standing up. "Seriously, Camila, I'm impressed. Having a contingency plan is always smart. Controlled risk. You always got to have a plan B." Camila's smile tensed. Her eyes narrowed. "Luis, what are you doing?" "No, seriously," I replied, raising my hands. "This deserves recognition." I went to the coat rack, grabbed my jacket, and took the small velvet box with the $100 ring from the inside pocket. She'd taken it off earlier to clean it for the party. I crossed the room without looking at her and stopped in front of Sergio, who was still smiling, though now with confusion. I handed him the box. "Your turn, buddy. She's all yours." I didn't just hand it to him. I opened his limp hand and dropped the box inside. The silence that followed was so heavy you could hear a pin drop on the rug. Daniela's mouth was open. Camila went from red to a sickly white. "The party's over," I said with a firm voice so everyone could hear me. "Thanks for coming. Please get out." "Luis," Camila finally yelled. "What are you doing?" "It was a joke. A dumb joke." "Was it?" I asked, staring at her. "Was it also a joke when you were at his apartment last Tuesday, or the weekend I went to visit my parents?" Her mouth snapped shut. I saw Sergio's eyes widen. He evidently didn't know I knew. Or maybe he didn't know she was lying to him too. I didn't care. Everyone out. Now, I said. As I opened the door, people rushed out, looking for coats and shoes without looking me in the eye. It looked like a bomb had gone off. Daniela and Valeria, tried to drag a crying Camila, but she resisted. I'm not leaving. This is my home. You can't do this. It's my apartment. Camila, you're not on the lease, I replied with a flat voice. You, Daniela, Valeria, and especially your backup plan. Out. Sergio, to his credit, seemed to want to be anywhere but there. He left the ring box on the table and practically ran out. Camila, Daniela, and Valeria were the last ones. You're a monster, Luis, Daniela spat. You're overreacting over nothing, Valeria added. Camila just looked at me crying. You're throwing away 4 years over a joke. I didn't answer, holding the door. I'm saving myself from a life, being plan A, while you audition for plan B. Now get out. She finally left. I closed the door, locked it, and put the chain on. That was 2 hours ago. My phone hasn't stopped vibrating. Texts from her friend group, and even her mom, who surely got the twisted version that Luis is a psychopath. I haven't read any. I'm sitting in the living room, surrounded by half-eaten snacks and abandoned gift bags. I grabbed a ring box, and I'm looking at it. The best $100 I've spent in my life. Update 1. 3 days later. Hi. I didn't expect this to blow up this way. Thanks for the support and the mostly good advice. My private messages are a battlefield, but the solidarity helps. I don't feel like I'm losing my mind anymore. The last 72 hours have been a roller coaster. The night after the party was chaotic. The banging on my door started about 10 minutes after I locked it. It was Camila, Sergio, her supposed backup, who had come back, and Daniela. They were yelling like they owned the whole building. Camila, Luis, open this door, they yelled. You're acting crazy. You embarrass me in front of everyone. We won't leave till you talk to her. You're controlling, they insisted. Come out. We can talk. You're making her cry. I didn't react. I sat on the couch, put on my noise-canceling headphones, and opened a new game to distract myself. For about 20 minutes, they kept banging and yelling nonstop. Then I took off my headphones, dialed the non-emergency police line, and reported a group of intoxicated people refusing to leave my property and causing a disturbance. I put the phone on speaker and turned up the volume. The operator's voice could be heard clearly through the door. Sir, are you in immediate danger? At that moment, the banging stopped. I heard nervous whispers. He's calling the cops. Let's go. Let's go, Camila. Come on. This guy's crazy. When the patrol lights reflected through my window, they were already gone. My phone became a nuclear reactor of notifications. I didn't read them until the next morning, and when I did, it was a masterclass in emotional manipulation. Camila sent me over 80 texts and 15 missed calls. She said things like, "How could you do that to me in front of everyone? It was just a joke. You have serious trust issues. Fine, I'm at Sergio's place. Are you happy now? You pushed me to him. You're throwing 4 years of memories in the trash. My mom is horrified. She can't believe you're so cruel. I'm coming tomorrow for my stuff. We need to talk. You didn't even let me explain. Sergio's just a friend. You twisted everything." Daniela also texted furious. "You're sick. Camila is devastated. She loves you, and you treated her like a monster. Hope you're happy alone, insecure weirdo. You really overreacted. It was a joke. You humiliated her for no reason." My response was simple and methodical. I didn't reply to anything. I blocked everyone: Camila, Sergio, Daniela, Valeria, even Camila's mom, who had texted me saying her daughter was a good girl and everything was a misunderstanding. At 8 in the morning sharp, a locksmith arrived, installed a high-security deadbolt, and changed the main lock. It cost me $280, but it was worth every penny. Then I started packing. I spent all day packing every single one of her things, every lipstick, every pair of shoes, all her clothes, toiletries, absolutely everything. I did it with surgical precision. I found gifts I'd bought her. I found notes I'd written her. That part was hard. I'm not going to lie. I sat on the closet floor for about 10 minutes feeling empty. 4 years of relationship summed up in cardboard boxes, but the anger came back fast. On her desk, I found a framed photo of her with Sergio from college. I packed it too. This is where things got complicated. She had 3 important pieces of furniture. A large antique-style vanity her aunt had given her, a bookshelf, a $700 ergonomic chair for working from home. I paid for the chair with my creded card 6 months ago. She swore she'd pay me back in installments. To this day, she has paid exactly zero. Yesterday, around 4 in the afternoon, the knocking started again. I looked through the peephole. It was Camila alone. This time she looked furious. I opened the door with the chain on. She pushed the door. "Luis, let me in. My key doesn't work." "I know. I changed the locks." "What did you do?" "You can't do that. This is my house. I have rights." "No, Camila, it's my apartment. You're not on the lease. You were a guest. You're not welcome anymore." "A guest? I've lived here 2 years. You can't just kick me out." "Yes, I can, and I already did. We're done. You can't break up with me over a joke. I'm taking my things. Your personal belongings are in boxes by the door." She blew up. "You pack my stuff. You're unbelievable. Open the door." "No, you can schedule a time to pick up the boxes. You'll have 30 minutes. You can only take what's in the entryway." Her face turned purple. "And my furniture, my vanity, my chair." "The vanity is yours. It was a gift. The bookshelf, too. The chair," I paused. "I paid for that one. You agreed to pay me, and you didn't. If you give me the $700, it's yours." She was in shock. "That's extortion. You're stealing my property. That's my work chair. I need it." "Then you should have paid for it or not had a backup fiancé." She threatened to call the cops. "Do it. I'd love to show them the lease and my credit card statement. Explain to them how your joke ended up in this." She looked at me with rage. She started crying, but they were tears of anger. "You're going to regret it, Luis. You have no idea." She left, dialing her phone. Right now, I have 14 boxes with her stuff stacked in the entryway. I'm waiting for the cops to show up for a theft report. I'm also half expecting someone to throw a brick through my window. This is a nightmare, but weirdly I feel lighter, calmer. The anxiety I'd been building up for months disappeared. Only clarity remains and a $700 chair that honestly is very comfortable. Update 2. 2 weeks later. 2 weeks later, this story keeps getting more absurd. The level of entitlement is impressive. Camila followed through on her threat. 2 days after my last update, 2 police officers knocked on my door. I looked through the peephole before opening, so I was already mentally prepared for what was coming. It wasn't a surprise. Camila and Sergio, her improvised backup, were standing by her car on the sidewalk, with that theatrical posture that looked rehearsed, as if they were posing for a scene where she was the victim and he the outraged hero. I took a deep breath, fixed my posture, and opened the door. The first officer was older, with a tired face, the look of someone who had already heard too many absurd stories in a single week. His partner, younger, observed everything cautiously, as if measuring every detail. "Sir, we got a call about a domestic dispute." "Miss Camila?" asked the older officer with a monotone voice. "Yes, that's me," I replied calmly. "Good afternoon, officers. There is no domestic dispute going on." Camila was outside with her arms crossed, red eyes, and a carefully rehearsed expression. "My ex-fiancée. I'd broken up with her the previous week and asked her to leave the apartment. Since then, she hadn't done anything but cause conflict and noise, as if her only mission was to make my life as complicated as possible. He locked me out. He stole my things," Camila said with a shaky voice, looking at the officers as if seeking their sympathy. "He has my expensive chair." The first officer let out a light sigh, almost imperceptible, as if he already knew it was an exaggerated personal drama. The second officer stepped a bit closer to me. "Sir, you understand that if she's a resident, you can't just lock her out of the home. That'd be considered an illegal eviction." "I understand perfectly," I replied without losing my cool. "That's why I have the lease agreement right here." I turned and grabbed the printed copy of the lease I'd already left ready on the table. I handed it to him. My name was the only one listed as a legal tenant. She was never added as a resident or co-tenant. Her driver's license, her bank statements, her bills, everything went to her parents' house. Legally, she never lived here. The officer reviewed the document carefully, turning the pages carefully. The first one looked at Camila, then looked back at me. "All right, but she has belongings inside the apartment." "Yes, she does. 14 boxes are right here in the entryway." I pointed inside the apartment, where the boxes were perfectly stacked, labeled, and organized. I packed all her things carefully. I offered her multiple times to schedule a formal pickup. She refused and demanded full access to the apartment to look for additional things. And I'm not comfortable with that after everything that happened. He's lying. Camila interrupted, raising her voice. He kept my work chair. That chair is worth $700. The second officer looked at me with a raised eyebrow. What about the chair? It's a disputed item, I replied calmly. I bought it with my credit card. I took out the printed bank statement and pointed to the highlighted charge. She agreed to reimburse me and never did. I told her she can take it as soon as she pays me the $700. Until then, it's legally mine. The rest of her things are here. Her clothes, her vanity, her bookshelf, books, personal boxes. She can take it right now under your supervision. The officers exchanged looks. The older one spoke briefly on the radio, murmuring the case. Then he looked back at me. This is a civil matter, a property dispute. We can't force him to hand over the chair. That must be resolved in small claims court, but we can supervise so she removes her undisputed belongings. Do you agree? Of course. Thank you, officer. The officers went to Camila and Sergio and explained the situation to them. The next 20 minutes were probably the tensest and quietest I've lived in this apartment. The cops stayed at the door watching. I was in the living room with my arms crossed, trying not to react. Camila and Sergio went in and out over and over carrying the boxes, taking apart the bookshelf, moving the vanity, which was especially awkward to get out through the narrow hallway. Camila cried exaggeratedly, long sobs, hiccups, dramatic pauses, looks to the sky. Sergio, on the other hand, was furious. He wouldn't stop glaring at me with hate, as if I were the villain in a story he'd made up in his head. While carrying the last box, he stopped in front of me and muttered, "You're a real scumbag. Just give her the chair and stop making this so complicated. You could transfer me the $700 and take it yourself," I replied calmly, without raising my voice. The first officer let out a short laugh, as if he found the situation absurd. Sergio's face turned red. He grabbed the box hard and walked out furious without saying anything else. "This doesn't end here, Luis." "You're a thief," Camila said from the sidewalk before getting in the car. "Have a good night, Camila." I closed the door. The officers nodded, gave me a professional look, and left. I stood in silence for a moment, leaning against the door, trying to process everything. I thought that'd be it. I believed the drama ended there. I was wrong. Her sense of entitlement only found a more dangerous and calculated path. Yesterday, I got a call from my landlord, Marcelo. He's a calm guy, always reasonable, who I'd never had problems with. "Hi, Luis. Hey, weird question, but is everything okay over there?" "Yes, Marcelo. Just a messy breakup, but it's under control. I'm calling cause I've received 3 anonymous calls in the last 24 hours. Supposedly concerned neighbors." I felt a chill in my stomach. Concerned about what? The first one said there was constant yelling and violent fights. The second talked about a weird chemical smell in the air vents, something about suspicious products. And the last one, 10 minutes ago, reported possible illegal drug activity and strange men going in and out of the apartment. I couldn't speak for a few seconds. I just stared at the wall, trying to understand the magnitude of what she was doing. "Look, Luis," Marcelo continued. "You've been an excellent tenant for 5 years. You always pay on time. We've never had complaints. I know this sounds absurd, and I know you, but the corporate office panics with these types of reports. The word drugs is especially serious. They told me I have to schedule a formal inspection next week, and if we get one more call, they'll push to issue an eviction notice for violating the community safety clause. This wasn't just an emotional smear campaign, it was a direct attack on my home, my stability, everything I'd built. She was trying to get me kicked out of the apartment, using the system against me. Marcelo, it's my ex she's getting revenge because I kicked her out of the apartment after everything that happened. It's a long story, but they're lies. There's nothing illegal here. I believe you, he said sincerely. I really do, but my hands are tied. I have to do the inspection. And please make this stop. I don't want to lose you as a tenant, but corporate can go over my head. I hung up the phone for the first time. I felt real fear. This was no longer a fight over a chair or an emotional breakup. It was a deliberate strategy to destroy my daily life, my reputation as a tenant, and my stability. I'm not a rich person, But I'm not naive either. I immediately called a local law firm and paid $350 for a 1-hour consultation. I explained everything in detail. The story of Sergio as a backup, the police report, the anonymous calls to the landlord, the threat of corporate eviction. I showed her the police report I'd requested and saved. The lawyer was direct, professional, and serious. This is typical behavior of a vengeful ex-partner trying to regain control through chaos. Her recommendation was clear: a cease and desist order. She's drafting a formal letter that'll be sent by certified mail to Camila at her parent house and also to Sergio and Daniela, whose addresses, unfortunately, I know because of everything that happened during the relationship. The letter will detail the police incident, the false report, the harassment campaign through anonymous defamatory calls to the landlord, and any attempt to interfere with my housing or job stability. It'll state that any additional contact, direct or indirect, or more anonymous calls will be treated as evidence in a future civil lawsuit for harassment, defamation, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. I also must send a formal email to my landlord and copy the building's corporate office, explaining the breakup, informing that I'm being the victim of a harassment and defamation campaign by my ex-fiancé, and attach a copy of the cease and desist letter to show that I'm handling the situation legally with professional advice. All this left a legal trail that protects me, and that's my reality. Now I spent $350 on a lawyer, $280 on a locksmith. My landlord thinks my apartment is some kind of a legal den, and next week I have a formal inspection. All because I refused to play along with an absurd joke. The incredible thing is that they were the ones who did everything wrong, and yet they tried to destroy my life as punishment for not letting myself be manipulated. I'm not angry anymore, I'm cold. This isn't a breakup anymore, it's a war I didn't ask for, but that I plan to finish. Final update. 2 months later, it's all over. It's finally over. I'm sitting in my apartment. It's clean, quiet, and I passed the inspection without any problem. Marcelo, my landlord, apologized profusely for everything that happened. Here's the final chain of events. My lawyer sent formal cease and desist letters by certified mail. All 3 were received and signed for. And immediately, total silence. The calls to my landlord stopped suddenly. The supposedly concerned tenant disappeared. It's impressive what a letter with a real law firm letterhead can do. The threat of a civil lawsuit for harassment was enough for that group to scatter. I also sent an email to the corporate office with the attached letters, and they replied with a very formal message saying they considered the false reports a closed matter. The backup plan was the part one didn't see coming. About a week after sending the letters, I got a text from an unknown number. "Hi, it's Sergio. Listen, I'm out of this. Everything is crazy. Camila is completely out of control." I looked at the text without answering. 10 minutes later, another one came. "She's been staying with me, and it's a nightmare. She wanted me to call your landlord again and say I saw you with a gun. I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to end up arrested because of her. I told her to leave. I'm done with this. Sorry for my part." So the backup plan crumbled as soon as it involved real risk or personal consequences. Sergio was happy being the arrogant and mocking lover, but he wasn't willing to be an accomplice to a serious crime. The $100 ring, it seems, was too high a price to pay. The final boss was Camila's mom. For almost a month, everything was calm. I was healing, regaining my peace. Until last night, my phone rang with an unknown number. I almost didn't answer. "Hi, Luis. It's Rosa, Camila's mom." My blood pressure spiked. "Hi, Rosa. I'm surprised you're calling." "Yes. Well, Luis, I know things ended badly. I'm not calling to argue about that." "All right. How can I help you?" "Look, Camila isn't doing well. She had to move back home. Sergio, well, he didn't turn out to be a good guy. She's very affected. She's trying to get back to her freelance work, but she fell silent. I didn't say anything. It's her back, Luis. She's in a lot of pain. She can't sit for more than an hour. That ergonomic chair you have," she said, "it was the only one that worked for her." I almost laughed. It was pathetic. After trying to get me evicted, trying to get me arrested, now the move was to send her mom to manipulate me over a chair. "Rosa, I'm sorry her back hurts. It's a shame. She says you're keeping it out of spite. I have it because I paid for it with my card for $700. She agreed to pay me and never gave me a dime. I'm not a charity, and I'm definitely not giving away something worth $700 to someone who tried to kick me out of my home. She sighed. This time she sounded frustrated. All right, how much do you want? $700. That's ridiculous. It's a used chair. That's the price I paid. That was the price she agreed to pay, and honestly, I'm being generous. I could charge for storage and emotional damages. There was a long, intense silence. I could hear her breathing. I can send you the money by transfer. I blinked. Yes, you can, and you'll give her the chair. You send me the $700. I'll put it on the porch. You can send whoever you want to pick it up. I don't want to see her. All right. She hung up, and not even 60 seconds passed when the notification popped up. Rosa sent you $700. Note for the chair. I took the fully paid chair out and left it outside. I sent her a text. It's outside. I watched through the window. An hour later, an old sedan I didn't recognize arrived. Camila got out of the passenger seat, ran, grabbed the chair, shoved it in the car, and they sped off. She didn't even look at my apartment. Ultimately, it all ended there. The show ended when it stopped being entertaining for them. The backup plan fell apart as soon as it involved real consequences, and the princess went back to her parents' shelter without her pride intact, but with her ergonomic chair funded by her mom. Through a mutual acquaintance, someone who at least had the decency to apologize to me, I learned that Daniela and Camila are no longer in contact. Apparently, Camila blamed Daniela for everything, saying that absurd joke was what destroyed her life. The lack of introspection is impressive. As for me, this had a cost. I spent $280 on the locksmith and $350 on the lawyer, which adds up to $630. However, I got back $700 with the chair, so technically I ended up $70 ahead. On emotional level, the bill was much higher. For years, without realizing the level of entitlement and manipulation I had in front of me, left me questioning my own judgment. Still, I'm at peace. The apartment is mine. It's quiet. I'm not dating anyone. I'm just enjoying the calm, something I didn't value until I almost lost it. I'm not a hero or a ruthless guy. I'm just someone who learned maybe too late to set boundaries and keep them. As for the $100 ring, the box ended up in the trash. I left the ring in one of those jewelry donation bins at the mall. I hope it reaches someone who really appreciates it. And that's all.